All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is shorebird, and I'll be your host for today. As we race our way through May, we're 2 days away from the International Day of Biological Diversity. So all month long, we have been talking to scientists, explorers, adventurers, conservationists who have been sharing stories, how they document our biodiversity, how they're sharing the loss of biodiversity around the planet and what it means. And then, of course, talking about solutions and how we can protect and conserve our wild places and our wildlife. So we still have about 10 days to go. So there's still lots of live events coming. If you visit the website, exploringbytheseat.com, you can find those live events. And then we'll have another newsletter come out over the weekend. So continuing on with that theme, we are going to connect with Liana and Tim from the Wings of Survival expedition. So this summer, they will be leaving on an incredible journey following a flyway along the Pacific that migrating birds take. They'll be starting up in Alaska and following it all the way along the spine of the Americas, right through South America. So it's going to be an absolutely incredible journey. We can't wait to follow along and join them along the way and have a whole bunch of fun and exciting live events from the field and track their progress. But recently, they were in Chiloé Island, so in the Chilean Patagonia, and they were putting trackers on whimbrels. So these are a shorebird species. These little backpacks allow them to track the incredible migration, the journey that they take along that spine of the Americas. And so, it's great data to collect. And then they'll kind of be following the birds' route from Alaska as they make their way back to South America. So pretty cool to be able to do that. I'm going to reach backstage right now and see if I can find Tim and Liana. Here we go. Hey, Tim. Hey, Liana. How are you?
Hey, good.
Hey, Joe. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I think we've had you in a few daily dives before, Tim, but I think this is our first chance to connect live like this.
First live session. Great timing. And we're really excited to be here.
Yeah, very, very cool. So I was just showing you before we went live. Some classrooms will know what this is. This is a Starlink unit, super small, super portable. And this is what is going to allow us to connect with you along the way from some of the remote locations as you make your way on the journey. So very, very cool. To the classrooms who are tuning in, don't be shy to use the chat sidebar. Let us know where you're watching from. And then, of course, send your questions in at any time. But Tim and Liana, we want to get to know the two of you a little bit more. We want to learn about this journey down to Patagonia. And then after that, we'll let the classrooms take over.
Well, thanks so much, Joe. So I'm going to share the presentation that we have.
All right. I see it loading. That's a good sign. Perfect. Looks good.
Good to go. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining in. We're really excited to take you onto this journey and hopefully continue to take you into the journey as we embark on this beautiful and very special expedition. So our project is called Wings of Survival, and it's literally the world first race with nature. But before we get into the details of the project, we'd love to introduce ourselves to you. So what's really unique about this project is Liana and I were coming from very different worlds. I'm a conservation scientist. In order to become a doctor of science, I was very lucky to work in tropical Asia. So here's some photos. That's me with my research helpers, Roy and Mamad, living in Borneo in the rainforest. And we're out there to study the impacts of deforestation. So cutting down of rainforest, turning rainforest into oil palm plantations. We wanted to understand what's the impacts on those beautiful animals like orangutans and elephants and snakes and that whole diversity we find in the tropics. And I spent about 3 years living in the rainforest. You can see my bed. So that's literally where I lived for 3 years. It's tiny. It's just a makeshift, basically wooden structure. There's a tarp on top. And then there's a mosquito net to protect from any visitors at night. And it might sound really strange, but it was literally the best place to sleep, because you get those beautiful sounds of the tropical rainforest at night. And I never slept long because I had so much work, maybe 6 hours a day. But the sleep was really deep and really refreshing. So there was a time of my life I really enjoyed this. And we're basically now here in Edmonton, so in Western Canada. We're at the University of Alberta. That's where we're connecting to you from.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leanna Carrier. I was born and raised in Edmonton, and it's kind of very different upbringing than what Tim did living in the rainforest. I dedicated my life to sport. I competed as an international pole vaulter for Team Canada. I was Canada's first female decathlete. I've done some crazy events like running the Mount Everest Marathon. We've done extreme Ironman events as well. And I've always advocated myself towards human health. So this is kind of what I really loved about this project, bringing the nature health, the planetary health, and the human health together. I also have a wonderful 9-year-old daughter that you can see in that picture, and she is becoming very empowered by this connection of sport and nature and what we're doing and learning about the birds. And she hopefully gets to join Earth Rangers a little bit along the way and share her passion for wildlife.
So basically, I'm a good athlete. Leanna is a great athlete, but there's one more athlete in the story, and this is the whimbrel. And the whimbrel is just an incredible migratory bird that travels literally across the entire Americas, and it's our partner on this expedition. And just imagine a bird that sort of comfortably fits into both of my hands. It's got this long beak because it primarily lives in mudflats and mangrove habitats along the coastline. So it's a shorebird. So it's using this long curved beak to look for crustaceans and little fiddler crabs. And actually the scientific name is Numenius, and Numenius means new moon. So that's where the name for the species come from. So this bird is our wonderful friend on the expedition. Here you can see a map on the left-hand side, and it's giving you a sense of where those birds migrate. If you look at the very top, it's Alaska and northern Canada. Those red areas, red-orange areas are where the birds go to breed, to reproduce, to have their super cute little ones like the one we see in the photo. Adorable. But they only spend about 2.5 months in that region. So most of the year, they actually travel to South America, to Central South America, potentially as far as the very tip. So you can see those blue areas along the coastlines. So they all come to the high Arctic, but then they disperse across South America on their migration. So phenomenal athletes, beautiful birds, and we're very happy to have them in our story.
Yeah, so this journey for us is going to be approximately 30,000 kilometers. We're going to start in Prudhoe Bay and head all the way down to the southern tip of South America. These little birds do it. They fly 7 days straight and upwards of speeds of, what did we see, 90 kilometers an hour. So they're much faster and much more efficient. So it's just phenomenal to see them kind of en route in the areas they choose to go, and we'll be following a similar route to some of these birds.
Yeah, so they're truly the most astonishing athletes on the planet, but they're also facing incredible challenges like most biodiversity on the planet. So there's climate change, there's habitat loss, there's pollution of waterways, plays a big role too. In some places, these birds are still being hunted. So they have this amazing resilience and endurance to travel across this flyway. But it's a very dangerous journey. It's naturally dangerous because it's so far and there's weather constraints. But we as humans, we're making life for these birds even more difficult. And the whimbrel, only in the last 50 years, about 90% of whimbrel populations have been lost. So that's a huge, huge blow. And these species are increasingly approaching the brink of extinction. So there's something we really need to do about saving those birds very urgently. But the birds are also a beautiful messenger for how the planet is connected, because the birds go everywhere, as you saw on the map, from Alaska to Patagonia. They're connecting they're connecting continents, countries, communities. So they're this really beautiful indicator for the health of the environment. So essentially, if we can look after migratory birds, we're really looking after the planet. So what we'd like to achieve is we want to, with Wings of Survival, we want to create a shift in perspective. We want people to really hold the planet in their hands, in our hands. We want people to feel like we have the responsibility to look after other species. Yes, we need resources, but we need to be careful about how we use the environment, how we use nature. And we don't want to continue exploiting nature. We want to start looking after the planet, which essentially means we're looking after ourselves.
So this is a picture of our team. So that's Justin. He's been documenting us for the last 4 years, so we can make this into a very powerful impact film. But this past February, we got to go all the way to Chiloé, which is that little dot you see, and we actually got to meet these amazing little athletes, these whimbrels, and we got to work with a team of scientists and help kind of put these little GPS pegs on them so we can start tracking the birds to see where do they go. So this helps us learn, but also helps the scientists learn more about these birds, how many days do they fly, where are the important stops along the way, and places we need to start protecting and looking out.
So we had this wonderful opportunity to go to an island called Chiloé, and it's quite far south in South America. It's a hotspot for whimbrels and other migratory species. So you can see Liana, myself, and Justin walking in those mudflats. It's a tidal zone, so the water every 6 hours comes in, goes out, and just continues this flow driven by gravitational forces largely. And so we had this opportunity to work with scientists, one scientist from Western University in Ontario, one Spanish scientist who is at the university in Austral de Chile in Patagonia. So we teamed up with those scientists who are experts on equipping birds with little GPS devices. And here we are standing in those mudflats. We're trying to find the whimbrel, and you can see a photo of, and it mostly shows some Hudsonian godwits, another incredible species that migrates across the entire flyway. But we're looking out for the whimbrels, which are more solitary. They don't necessarily stay in flocks or migrate in flocks. They're usually just on their own. So here we've got one, and there's a little fiddler crab. So the whimbrel caught one. There's one just to give you a sense of the crab. So they're basically roaming around, taking advantage of the water having moved out towards the ocean. There's lots of seagrass, lots of seaweed. They're looking for those crustaceans. And this is what we had to do to catch them.
Yeah, so this was a very new experience, I think, for the both of us. But so we worked with a team of scientists, and we actually had to put these nets out. So first we had to make sure that the tide was out, and then we had to get the timing right. And then there was a team in the bushes hiding that you can't see. And then we had to kind of hide this net, because what they do is we patiently waited for, I don't know how many hours. We were waiting. We had to be super quiet. We had to make sure no one was going on the beach, so that when the tide came in, these birds would be pushed into the netted area. And once there was a certain amount of birds that the scientists could see from the bushes, they released this cannon net over top of the birds. And within 3 seconds, everyone was running to get these birds and put them in a safe bag and take them back to the research station so that we could see how heavy, so they measured their weight, their beaks, just the size of them.
And that's what we're doing here. So this is a standard protocol for catching shorebirds. The net flies over the birds. We quickly run, get the birds. We safely take them into a shaded area. So here we set up a little outdoor lab. And you can see on the left-hand side, this is the little cages. They're covered so the birds can kind of calm down. It's of course a little bit stressful for the birds, so they're calming down. And then the scientists, they're also taking advantage of making sure we understand, are the birds healthy? What's the size? What is the size of, for example, the wings and the feathers and the weight? So they're taking measurements, partly because it's very important data, but it also helped us to identify the 5 what we deemed most healthy birds. And those were the birds where we put those little GPS devices. And you can see on the right-hand side, it's like a backpack. So we used a harness, which is a little tubing system. So it doesn't hurt the bird at all. It's just like a little backpack sitting on the bird. You can see those solar panels. So those GPS devices are powered by solar. So they can technically work forever. So it's a beautiful system to live track birds on a very regular basis. So in our case, that means whenever there's a connection between this transmitter and a satellite flying, orbiting around space, once there's a connection, we get a signal and we see this on a map. And so we looked after those birds. We made sure they're happy, they're healthy, and then we took them back to the beach. And it was this beautiful moment where we're holding those birds and we're releasing the birds, wishing them well and hoping to see them in Alaska and again 12 months later on Chiloé Island. So this is really setting the scene for this beautiful story. And so when we were in Patagonia, Justin came along, our film producer, and we have a little film that we'd love to show you now.
Back from Patagonia 2 weeks ago with Tim and Leanna. Tim and Leanna are the first 2 people behind the first race with nature. In June, they are going to be cycling from Alaska all the way down to Patagonia, 150 kilometers a day, following the Migratory bird flyway. Wings of Survival is about to take flight. Following Tim and Leanna over the last 4 years has been a marathon in itself. We've been from Alaska to Patagonia, Colombia, and all over Canada. We've been all over the world filming Tim and Leanna on their emotional and physical journey as they prepare for this expedition. Birds are actually basically the #1 best indicator of the health of the planet that we have. There's no other species in the world that really connect the world like birds do. If we can see migratory patterns changing and data on where these birds are going, we get a really good idea of the health of the planet.
So we're here today in Patagonia meeting our 5 whimbrels that are going to be tagged by a group of scientists. The birds we see here, we're hopefully going to reconnect with them at the start line in Alaska, and the race starts. Tim and I will be cycling from Alaska to the southern tip of Patagonia, and these birds will kind of be following the same parallel journeys.
Most bird species are really declining. For us to really do something about their conservation, about protecting those species in the ecosystems, we first need to know, what does that actually mean to be a bird and to commit to such an extraordinary migration?
I really hope this kind of excitement around racing the birds really helps people reconnect and realize how our health is directly connected to the environments around us.
One of the unexpected things on this last trip to Patagonia was we ended up going to this conservation site called Tagua Park. We feel very lucky that we were able to go in there to capture this place that so few people get to see. And they don't make it easy to get out there. We have 20 kilometers of hiking over 4 days to get out to Tagua Park, which is where we've started our hike today. Not only are we hiking in our normal backpacking, survival, food, first aid supplies, but on top of that, we're carrying 40 extra pounds worth of camera gear to actually get the cameras out to this park. So it is quite the challenge, but well worth it. Obviously, we as documentarians, we can't be there for some of those places, that they're in extremely remote places. There's just literally no way for us to get there. So we've been training Tim and Leanna how to film themselves as well. This was the perfect training ground for Tim and Leanna to get behind the camera and actually put everything that they've learned to the test while it's raining in harsh conditions. We want them to vlog and be filming each other in all of these scenarios.
Yeah, Leanna is really progressing her skills. She now knows it's important to take off the lens cap, and she knows the importance of keeping things very level.
Tagua Park is a really great visual metaphor that we can use in the documentary for showcasing nature and showing the contrast of its fragility next to how strong nature is. So I think that this place is a great visual metaphor and just a great example of conservation done right.
We have spent so much time and effort getting to where we are now, following this story for the last 4 years as Tim and Leanna are training at elevation. How are their bodies going to work as they're cycling up the Andes? We've been in Colombia documenting that. How do they rescue each other when they're in the Arctic refuge, one of the most remote and wild places on this planet, with polar bears around them, and they're alone? And we've worked with them and community support to help make these trips happen and bring this story to life. But now that we've actually made it to the expedition, we still need that support. We still need funding. We still need that community support, those logistical support people, anyone with ideas that can help us. We're bringing those people on board right now because this is an independent documentary that we need a community to help bring to life. So that's the update. Come on board, strap your helmet on, and we'll see you on the road.
Yeah, so this is giving you a little glimpse into what we've been doing the last couple of years. And so this is where we're at, just briefly. So we take those birds in on Chiloé, and now we've been live tracking those birds. They made a big jump that you see on the left-hand side from southern South America all the way to Baja California, so northern Mexico. The birds literally traveled 9,000 kilometers, an incredible 5 days at a pace of 80 kilometers an hour. Totally outrageous. Since they got there, 3 of the birds migrated, 2 decided to stay. 3 birds, they now made their individual choices, but 2 of them are now in Alaska, and they're actually approaching each other. So it's fascinating to see how those birds that we caught in the very same location in Chile are now meeting again in Alaska. So we're excited to go to Alaska ourselves very soon and start this beautiful journey with those birds. So just briefly, we do a lot of science. So we work on us as humans. We have scientists studying our physiology. So how do we perform as human athletes? And we link this back to the birds because people study how birds perform. We're going to use little devices that capture the soundscape, like the sounds of ecosystems. So that we can understand how do bird communities shift as we traverse the entire Americas. And then we noticed when we rode across Canada 2 years ago, lots of birds are hit by vehicles. So we also want to study what birds and what frequency. So we're doing this very important scientific research along the journey. And then there's education as well.
Yeah, so well, we're joined up with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, which is super exciting. So we can tune in with you guys as we start this journey, hopefully once a week, and you guys can follow our journey all the way from Alaska down to Patagonia. We also have my daughter will be doing her own streaming with Earth Rangers and kind of showcasing what it's like from her eyes, just being 9. What does this all mean to her?
And then, as mentioned, we have the film, and the film is going to come out quite a bit later than the expedition. But we're super fortunate to have so much support. There's so many people as part of this team to really tell this story and to bring people closer to nature, using the human element, which people are fascinated about, but drawing into this very organic connection between humans and migratory birds. And this is where we're at, and we're excited about your questions now.
Okay, very cool. Let me take the presentation down. There we go. That's great, Leanna and Tim. That video, for a little preview video, it turned out really well. And I'm glad Leanna is able to get the lens cap off and hold the camera straight. I think that's pretty important too for filming. Very cool. Yeah, that's great. Looks like you had an amazing time in Chile. And I think it's time we turn things over to the classrooms and let them see what's on their mind. So if you are tuning in, again, don't be shy. Use that chat sidebar. We already have some questions in there, but let's get some more in there for our time together. And the first one I want to start with here, Tim and Leanna, is from a 3rd grade class. And it's a very simple, right to the point question. It is, will you win? Do you think you're going to win the race?
Leanna?
Well, I would like to say we could be quicker than the birds, but I don't think that's possible. These little birds fly 80 kilometers an hour on average for 7 days straight. So they will beat us. We might be able to meet them in, say, Baja California when they're refueling on a refueling stop. But I feel like they are just way stronger and faster than us.
Fair enough. I think I remember in the video you mentioned 150 kilometers a day. So the birds are obviously great flyers. Are they covering more than that, would you figure, in a day?
Yeah, so they can travel. So the ones we tagged, they traveled 5 days, 9,000 kilometers. So that's more, maybe roughly 1,400 kilometers a day, 1,500,
wow.
Maybe more. So they're way faster. But for us to sort of win this race is going to be meeting those birds again. That would be,
of course,
that's the ultimate dream, to see the birds.
Very, very cool. So adding to that track of how far they can fly, I've got a classroom here in Saskatoon, and they're wondering, one of the birds, it looked like it really hugged the land and made its way up. The other one was over the ocean. Is there a reason why they take such different paths?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And, the scientists that we work with, they've been so excited to see this data, because there's actually very little data and very little understanding at the moment on how do those birds migrate. We know they start in Alaska and they finish in South America, but what happens in between, we oftentimes don't understand. So just those 3 birds, it's interesting to witness. The one which was indicated in green has literally for the last 2 months just been hopping back and forth between the mainland and a tiny island, back and forth every day. The red bird for the last 3 weeks has been traveling up the Pacific coastline of the US, stopped around Seattle, stayed for about a week, had more food, refueling, and then flew over to Alaska. The blue one left about a week ago, straight over the ocean, 3 days, and we don't really know why. So this is very new information, and it's super important information, because it allows us to understand what places are really important for those birds, which places do we need to focus on with limited resources to protect. Yeah. But I think what we also see is, to us, the birds might all look the same, but they're all individuals, right? They're all unique, just like we humans probably look the same to a whimbrel, but we're also all unique, so we make our own choices.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, I've got a two-parter here from a classroom in Toronto. The first part is, what's been the most challenging thing preparing for the expedition? And then they also want to know, what was the most challenging thing about being in Chile and trying to tag the birds?
Yeah, so I think the challenging part definitely in Chiloé with taking the birds. Um, it was it was a lot of time, a lot of patience, and understanding where to set up the nets. The scientists had been there a week prior to us. There's every morning they go out and study where the birds going. They like to hang out at the same rocks, so they had a good idea. But just the patience behind it all. So it doesn't happen as quick as it looks. It all happens very quick once those nets go off. But there's a huge part of just understanding, where to put the nets and then where to get those birds, like when to fire the cannon, because I think we only had one shot. And then you disrupt the birds, and then they won't come back after that net's fired for a while. So you have to really make sure you're ready to shoot it.
Well, to give you a little anecdote, so we met those scientists, and we only had a tiny window of 3 days because of other commitments. So we're meeting those scientists. The first day we have to find the right beach, we have to observe, we have to understand what are the dynamics of the birds. The second day we have our one opportunity, because it's a tidal system and we can't do it at night. We literally just have one opportunity to catch those birds. And in order for the birds to come very close to shore, they have to feel safe. So that means we're setting up the net about 2.5 hours before the birds are coming closer to shore. And then we're all hiding. It's all very quiet. And so we're sitting there in the bushes, and the birds are coming closer and closer. And it's literally a matter of minutes, and someone's starting to use a chainsaw to cut some firewood. We're like, oh, that's crazy. Hopefully the birds are not going to be disturbed and fly away. So we got lucky, but this game of patience and hoping that we catch those birds was definitely stressful and the most difficult component. I'd say for the entire expedition, so the project has been in the making for 5 years. We started this idea in 2021, so it's been an incredible journey in itself. The most challenging part has certainly been, we started as 2 individuals, and then slowly we're bringing more partners on board, and we want to win big organizations like Patagonia, for example, a big organization that's very committed to doing good for the planet. So bridging this scale from 2 individuals all the way up to big organizations, building trust, building relationships, that has been very challenging, but it's also been rewarding because we've learned so much and we're so much better prepared now.
Okay. Tim and Leanna, I just want to check with you. Are you able to see me right now, or do you still have the presentation up?
We can't see you. I see the presentation.
Yeah, you can stop there you go.
Okay.
I just noticed
Sorry.
the presentation was still full screen backstage, so I was wondering if you could see me or not, which is totally fine because you can hear, so that's no big deal. Okay, perfect. So this one you might have the answer to. This is from this grade 6 class in Toronto. Why did the scientists tell you why they go so far? I mean, Alaska all the way to Chile is about as long as migration as you can have on the 2 continents. Why not like Mexico to Alaska, or why so far? Did the researchers tell you anything about that?
Yeah, again, an incredibly good question, and it's sort of something we're pondering about ourselves, because you saw the map, right? Potentially, as you said, some just go to Mexico, some go to Colombia. Why do some individuals take this additional challenge of traveling another 5, 6, 7, 8,000 kilometers? The short answer is we really don't know. And again, it might be individuals. Maybe it's something in the DNA. So something we have to understand is birds have been around since longer than the dinosaurs. So they've been for millions and millions of years. Birds have been around. Migration is a very ancient evolutionary mechanism. So there might be things which are just very difficult for humans to even study, to fully grasp. So the shortcut might be to say it comes down to individual preferences. But I'd just like the classroom, I'd like to say there's probably something deeper, and we haven't discovered that yet.
Yeah, well, I think that's important too, because I think sometimes students think or under the impression that we know everything. There's nothing left to explore or discover. But with our natural world, that couldn't be further from the truth. I think we're still just kind of scratching the surface and figuring a lot of things out. Okay, I've got a classroom in Florida here. Curious about, we know the journey, where you're starting, where you're ending, but what's it going to look like in between? What's your plan, for stops along the way and things along the way?
Yeah, we're looking to stay as coastal as possible. So it was kind of neat on that map when we saw the redbird, kind of those dots along the coastline. I kind of thought when I saw that, I was like, oh, look, he's mapping our route. But it does take a lot of planning to hit major cities and try to stay off busy roads for our own safety. But yeah, basically staying as coastal as possible along the West Coast.
Yeah. And will you be meeting like with groups along the way, stopping in maybe, there's important stopover places for birds kind of along this route? Are those going to be some of the destinations?
Yeah, for sure. So one of our partner organizations is Birds Canada. And while they're based in Canada, they're really interested in migratory birds. And they have an initiative called Conserva Aves. It's across Latin America, different sites, different locations, which are really important for migratory birds. It's coastal, but it's also rainforest and dry forest ecosystems. So as part of this collaboration, we're going to visit their sites and we're going to work with communities. So we really want to, and even if anyone's who's listening right now, if your class, your school is on our route, we'd love to stop and talk to you in person. But that's definitely something we're really keen to do. We're not pre-planning too much because it's so hard to predict what's going to happen en route. It's not easy to get the timing right, but we're going to have we're live tracking the birds, and there's going to be a beautiful map on our website to spotlight the birds' journey, our journey. So if you're following the map, you can see us coming closer. You can reach out to us. You can say, look, we're interested for you to come and meet us, and let's go and look at some birds, or maybe go cycling a bit. That's something we absolutely want to do. We're not anonymous. We'd love to bring communities into the story.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely, before the school year ends, we'll plant that seed with classrooms, because we do have classrooms all along the West Coast. So hopefully there is a couple stops you can make along the way. What's your best guess for where you'd be around September? That's kind of when the new school year is going to start.
I think we'll get to Vancouver around early August, and then so then we have the US coast. My feeling would be around San Diego.
Yeah.
The US Mexican border, roughly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, US schools do tend to start earlier, say mid-August. So yeah, hopefully there will be an opportunity to stop in a few schools. That'll be really cool. Awesome. So, you've been planning this journey for a while. Everything's kind of, I imagine, starting to feel like it's steamrolling. July's coming really fast. What are your big goals over the next, I guess, really, I don't want to scare you guys, but we're getting almost to like the 2-month mark.
There's so much to do.
Yeah.
The list is nonstop. There's the goals of making sure the support vehicle is set up and we have all the equipment we need. We've been working with some great partnerships and brands to help us with that, but we also have to know how to use the equipment, like taking the lens cap off. It gets more complicated with more of the technology. Yeah. So be making sure that we know how to use the GoPros, the cameras, the satellite devices, the bike computers, the power meters. So there's a lot of that we have to sort out in the next 6 months, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Lots of fine tuning. Yeah. But we feel we're very close.
Yeah. The good news with the Starlink, you plug it into so you'll have one of these, just a simple phone bank charger, just to plug into the Starlink. point it at the sky and it'll do everything for you. So that's maybe one less piece of technology you have to worry too much about.
Oh, good.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we have time to squeeze in maybe a couple more questions before we wrap up for today. I know what I want to make sure that we post here. Social media, where can people follow along on the journey?
Yeah, so at Wings of Survival. That's our Instagram, Facebook, and then our website. We should have TikTok up and running by then, and the Instagram will just feed to TikTok automatically. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Well, I've got a question here. This is from a classroom in Kitchener, Ontario, wondering, where did the idea for this journey come from? How did it first take shape?
Yeah, good questions. And we can probably both speak to this. So for me, the very final cue was looking at a map of the flyways. So the flyways are those corridors that the birds migrate. And like millions of people probably look at this map, for me, something just clicked. And I just immediately realized this is a pretty crazy idea, but it's also a very valuable and an important story. So I had this idea to traverse these flyways unmotorized. And this is meant to be just the first expedition. Before seeing the map, the really important cue was.
Yeah, I was looking at it as an athletic endeavor. Prior to meeting Tim, I saw someone had ridden this Pan American highway, and like Tim having this feeling of clicking, I kind of thought, I want to ride this highway. It looks pretty amazing. And I noticed, maybe I could do a record attempt, or how do I make it, sporty. And then shortly after I saw this map, I met Tim and I showed him the map and said, do you want to ride 30,000 kilometers? And he didn't say no. He said, I'll ride 30,000 kilometers, but he challenged me to really think of it as a project, and let's do something impactful. So it's not just about a medal or a race or a record. It has to be creating impact along the flyway. And that's what I really love about this project, is we're using kind of our talents and passions to create something pretty amazing, I think. This whole sports for nature. So I love that it's not about a record or a medal anymore. It's so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the age of maybe exploration or adventure for the sake of adventure, I think we're starting to leave that behind. And now we start to think a lot more about scientific exploration and, how can we pair a challenge? How can we do some good with that exploration as well? So this is a perfect, I think, marriage of not only I'm sure you'll be monitoring your bodies and collecting lots of data like that, but then you've got the conservation side, the science side, kind of filling in some blanks for scientists as well, which is pretty cool. Okay. On the map, you're going to be able to cycle pretty much the entire way, but there's a little part in Central America where it's just not going to be possible. Can you tell us about that part of the world and how you're going to tackle that?
Yeah, so it's a little part, but it's going to be it's almost an expedition in itself. So between Panama and Colombia, there's an interruption. There's no road. It's rainforest, and it's a very dangerous place to cross. So our goal is, at the moment, our plan is to not cross the rainforest, but to be on the water, on the Caribbean side, and to be in our little pack rafts, or maybe on a sailboat, depends on sort of the safety conditions, which we're monitoring. But we basically have to cross this around 150 kilometer stretch on water. So we're just somewhere on the shoreline in Panama. We get into the boat. We'll be on, if it's a sailboat, it's maybe 5 days. The 5 days, if we're paddling, it's maybe 2 weeks. And then we get to the shoreline of Colombia, and hopefully we don't get into trouble. But yeah, that's almost an expedition in itself.
All right. Well, I know that you've already been to Colombia, but and places like that, Central America and into South America, which are some of the best bird watching on the planet in some of those places, some of the most diversity of species as well. So I'm sure that'll feature in your journey as well. Hopefully you can take some time to get out there early in the morning and watch those birds.
Well, I'm always jealous of your photos, I have to say. But Yeah, for sure. I mean, Colombia, the most bird biodiverse country, the tropics in general. I've always loved this. Even when I was doing my PhD, the going was hard very often because you're so exposed. But it's this beautiful opportunity to be part of nature, and every day to kind of witness diversity, to not basically waking up and you don't know what you're going to see, right? There's all these surprises, and I love this element of diversity, and the tropics are just fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I've been on my own migration mission, nowhere near as intense and ambitious as yours, but this month, all the warblers are moving through. So I've been out first thing every morning, trying to photograph these tiny little, beautifully colored birds, but they never hold still. They're always so high up in the trees. So it's a real challenge, but it's anytime you tick off a new species, it's pretty fun. So less challenging than what you'll be up to, but a fun little migration encounter, I guess, in the month of May.
Yeah, for sure. And those birds go to the tropics, right? They go to Colombia. So it's pretty neat.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I want to start off. We're at that time where I want to give a big shout out to the classrooms who tuned in today and those who will tune into the recording later today and throughout the week. Thanks so much for being with us, and thanks for those great questions. Liana and Tim, thank you so much for being with us today to kind of introduce what you're getting up to and share the tagging journey with us. We can't wait to follow along. Classes will probably start coming online late August into September. So I imagine you'll have tons of stories to share with us from the start of the journey. And then we'll be following you all the way down the coast the rest of the way.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much for chatting. And we're excited to bring everyone into the story. So yeah, we'd love for you to be part of it.
All right. Excellent. Well, quick reminder, classrooms, educators, head to exploringbytheseat.com to see what else is coming up this month. Next month, we get into the ocean action. So we'll have a lot of events before we wrap up for the school year. But for now, we're going to say a big thank you and goodbye. Thanks, Liana. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.